A meeting being described as one of the most important in recent years has suddenly placed the entire world on edge, and most people still don't realize how serious the situation behind the scenes between the United States and China really is right now. While millions continue living their normal lives, governments, investors, and major corporations are watching every move as if the future of the global economy depends on it. And maybe it actually does. Over the last few hours, footage of Donald Trump arriving in China began spreading rapidly across international news networks. But behind the handshakes, diplomatic speeches, and closed-door meetings, a much bigger concern is quietly growing inside the United States. A concern involving inflation, rising prices, economic tension, and fears of a new global crisis. Because while officials try to project calm to the public, America's economic numbers have started alarming experts once again. Inflation in the United States has reached its highest level in 3 years, reigniting fears many people believe had already been left behind. And the problem is that when inflation surges in the world's largest economy, the effects don't stay inside America. The entire world feels it. At grocery stores across the country, Americans have started noticing steady increases in the prices of basic goods. Fuel costs are climbing. Food prices continue rising. Rent is putting pressure on families. Companies are spending more to produce goods. And slowly, a sense of economic insecurity has started returning. But this time, there's an even more dangerous factor behind the situation: the relationship between the United States and China. Because today, almost everything in the global economy depends on these two countries in some way. Technology, manufacturing, exports, transportation, energy, investments, everything is connected between Washington and Beijing. And any tension between these two superpowers creates shockwaves across the entire planet. That's exactly why this meeting has gained so much international attention. According to American analysts, the meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping could shape the direction of the global economy for the next several months. And even though public appearances may seem controlled, sources connected to the political environment say the atmosphere behind closed doors is far more tense than it appears. Over the past several years, the relationship between the two countries has gone through extremely fragile moments. Massive tariffs were imposed, companies faced economic pressure, global supply chains were disrupted, and investors began losing confidence in the stability of international markets. Many people believed those tensions had cooled down, but now, with inflation rising sharply again in the United States, everything appears to be back on the table. And there's one question worrying economists around the world: can the United States control inflation without entering an even larger economic confrontation with China? Because the current situation has become an extremely dangerous balancing act. On one side, the United States is trying to protect its economy, lower prices, and avoid growing political pressure at home. On the other side, China is trying to maintain economic growth, global influence, and commercial stability. The problem is that every decision made by one side immediately impacts the other, and that has started creating major tension in financial markets. Over the last few hours, investors have been watching every statement from a meeting almost in real time. Markets fluctuated. Companies revised economic forecasts, and analysts began warning about possible global consequences if negotiations fail to move forward. Because this is no longer just about politics. It's about the price of everyday life around the world. If trade tensions escalate further, factories could slow production, products could become more expensive, and companies could reduce investments. In reality, that means greater economic hardship for ordinary people everywhere, and that fear is already starting to spread. Many Americans are worried about a possible return to the difficult economic periods experienced in recent years. During interviews and television broadcasts, economists have been warning that rising inflation combined with trade conflict could place enormous pressure on the economy. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has once again become the center of international attention. His arrival in China immediately stood out because Trump has always maintained a very aggressive stance toward trade negotiations with the Chinese government. For years, he criticized economic agreements, accused China of unfair practices, and pushed for tougher measures to protect American industries. Now, his arrival comes at one of the most sensitive moments the global economy has faced in recent times. And many people believe that whatever is decided during this meeting could directly impact the U.S. dollar, oil prices, consumer costs, financial markets, and even the cost of living for millions of people around the world. But there's another detail making the situation even more concerning. Experts have started noticing signs of economic slowdown appearing in different parts of the world at the same time. Europe facing difficulties, Asian markets becoming unstable, companies acting more cautiously, investors growing nervous, and now U.S. inflation rising aggressively once again. All of this together has created a silent sense of tension throughout the global market, and when investors begin to panic, the effects can spread incredibly fast. Companies delay investments, markets fall, hiring slows down, consumer spending weakens, and the entire economy starts losing momentum. That's why this meeting has become so important. Because right now, the world is not simply watching two political leaders meet. The world is trying to understand whether global economic stability still exists or whether we are entering a new phase of economic conflict between major powers. Meanwhile, millions of ordinary people have no idea how much their lives could be affected by decisions being made inside those closed rooms in China. One signed tariff, one rejected agreement, one aggressive statement. Any single detail could completely change the direction of the global market. And perhaps that is exactly what is frightening so many experts right now. The feeling that the global economy has become extremely fragile. Across American social media, conversations about inflation, economic crisis, and possible recession have started growing rapidly. People are discussing rising living costs, financial pressure, and fears of another unstable economic period. Because in the end, everything eventually reaches ordinary people. More expensive fuel, more expensive food, higher interest rates, less secure jobs, and a constant feeling of uncertainty about the future. Now the world is watching every new development from this meeting between the United States and China as it were a critical move in a massive economic chess game. Because when the two largest powers on Earth enter a period of tension, nobody truly escapes the consequences. And perhaps the most concerning part of all is this. Many people believe this meeting isn't simply trying to solve a crisis, but to avoid the start of something much bigger.